Hey there, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ. It is I, Kurt Siebold from Parade the Gospel. So we're going to do a video today that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something I've wanted to talk about for a very long time. I wanted to do its own standalone video. Now, I'm not going to be able to give it the treatment that I would love to give this topic. This is going to be more laid back. It's going to be more off the cuff. I am going to be reading some stuff that I had posted about this on December 28th on my Facebook just to help me get the juices flowing in my mind and get myself back in the headspace that I was in on that day. I meant to actually do this video that very night because it was fresh in my mind, but things got in the way and I just never got to it. So I want to do that today. And again, I hope that maybe someday I can put a whole bunch of notes together and give this topic more justice. But you've seen the title of the video, which I have yet to determine what that's going to be, but it's probably going to be our gospel tracts ineffective. Should we use them? Should we just toss them aside and not use them at all? Should we rely only on talking to people one-on-one? That's what some people think, anyway. So, and I've wanted to do this video for a very long time. And by the way, this video is not going to be a list of reasons why we should use gospel tracts or benefits to using gospel tracts, although this does kind of blend over a little bit. But it's not going to be that. It's basically going to be a defense to use gospel tracts without going too much into all the varying reasons of why gospel tracts are good. So a lot of people, let me just say this, that the reason why this kind of renewed my interest lately to talk about it, even though I wanted to do this video for a long time, I just haven't gotten around to it, is that on December 28th, the Facebook page Reformed Sage posted a question. And they posted, let me get to it right here. They said, discussion topic, when you evangelize, do you handle Bible tracts? Why or why not? So there's a lot of opinion about this, and I've seen these opinions before, and I want to share what I wrote in the aftermath of reading a lot of these comments. Now, I did reply to a few of the comments, and I want to get to that in a little bit. But first, I just want to share with you guys what I wrote, again, in the aftermath of reading these comments. And I've seen stuff like this before, so it's not new to me. But just hear me out. So I wrote this. I said, it pains me when Christians come against gospel tracts, especially once they give their reasons. They're not good. 9 out of 10 times the criticism comes from those who aren't spreading the gospel themselves. And just pause what I wrote there for a second, but that's just from my perspective, or my what I've seen in my own life. People, like especially locally, that will come against me for using gospel tracts or doing parades for that matter. I think one of the very first training video that I did talking about parades, I discussed this a little bit, how sometimes I have people in the local church will come against me for doing that because I use gospel tracts, and they don't share with me what I should be doing. I think I wrote that too, but they're not doing anything themselves, at least to my knowledge. They don't display anything of going out to share the gospel or any passion. But that's getting ahead of myself. So anyway, 9 times out of 10, the criticism comes from those who aren't spreading the gospel themselves, at least what I've seen. And they never replace it with what a person should be doing instead. Or it's just very vague, hinting that they aren't doing anything themselves. So sometimes the vague thing will be, you need to build relationships first. You need to spend years of your life building a relationship, gambling on the chance that they will not die in those many years. And then maybe when you build up that relationship enough, then you can invite them to church, and then your pastor can preach the gospel. That's kind of the gist of what I hear from most people, if they do replace it with anything. If they do have any idea of how you should, go about getting the gospel out. And I do have, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I do not think we should invite unbelievers to church. I think that is not exactly biblical. The only instance in Scripture where you see unbelievers coming to church is when it talks about the spiritual gifts in 1 Corinthians. I'm not going to get into the whole thing of it now, but when they come in, unbelievers, if they come in your meeting and you see them all going off in tongues, well, there's obviously a problem with that, and Paul corrects that stuff going on there. But you don't see that, and again, I'm not going to go into the big thing of why I believe this, but the church is for equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. I mean, you see that in Ephesians, I believe, chapter 4, and that's what it should be. I mean, what business do unbelievers have going inside the church when they're not there to learn? You know, the church is for equipping us. It's for praising God and all those things. An unbeliever can't do that. And I'm forgetting how it's worded exactly in 1 Corinthians, but you know, they can't interpret Scripture because they don't have the Holy Spirit in them. So there's a verse on that. It's just not clicking right now. But anyway, so back to my post. I said, I'm not saying a person has to use them, and I want to make myself clear. If you don't use gospel tracts, I couldn't care less. It's not a big deal. I would try to convince you that maybe you should. I would try to give you some reasons why you might want to at least consider it. You know, we can have that discussion. We can sit down together, drink some tea, and have that discussion, friendly, polite. And if you walk away from that still not wanting to use gospel tracts, well, that's fine. So I'm not saying the person has to use them. If you don't want to, I don't care. But if you're going to knock it, understand that you are discouraging many Christians who are faithful and doing something, and you don't know 1% of the awesomeness that came about from using them. And that is so true. The people that knock it have no idea what good has been coming out of it. So, for example, when I think about this topic, I think about two people in particular from the first church that I went to ages ago. I love those people, still talk to a number of them, but there's two people in particular that did come against me spreading the gospel using gospel tracts in the parade. It's been a number of years now, but it's still fresh in my mind that they came against that. But they came up with all the typical excuses or ways to knock you down, saying that, oh, people are just going to throw them away, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to read them. They do. But what they don't realize is all the good that came from that, all the adventure that came from that, all the people that got the gospel of Jesus Christ from that. Not to mention my own family. I shared the story before, I'll share it again. And I want to make its own standalone video going out to the vocation and talking about this. But 2013, the 4th of July, we were out spreading the gospel, sharing gospel tracts outside of the firework display in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. And my daughter was with me, Chloe, my oldest one now, but she was with me, and she was 3 at the time, just about to go on 4 years old, but she was with me. And she saw me handing these gospel tracts out, and she wanted to join in. And it wasn't me who said, hey, how about you try handing some gospel tracts? No, she wanted to do it. And you know where she's at today with me? She's my faithful partner. And it is awesome. Like, I thank God all the time for that. And, I can't get her away from me. Like, if I'm telling her I'm going to do this or that event, she wants to come with. Unless it's like really late at night when I do the Appleton Bar Outreach or something like that. Obviously, she can't come with me then, but she wants to, even at that. But anyway, so, if only those people, and I don't want to try to sound like I'm bragging, because that's not the point. But how many Christians have kids that care at all about the faith or even sharing the gospel? Because parents usually aren't doing it. I think I talked about this in my main training parade video that comes up. If you're not a subscriber, then you will see that on my homepage. That comes up right away. And by the way, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to my channel if this content blesses you, if it's for you. And share this, please, guys. Share any one of my videos. I have probably almost 200 videos now. There's a lot of old videos. Sometimes I go through some of my old content, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just re-upload this, because I think people should see this. I don't know. I don't think too often people see the old stuff, but you should. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of times Christian parents aren't spreading the gospel, and therefore their kids. I mean, if these two people who criticized me way back in the day, if they could only know just 1% of it, I think it would blow their socks off. They don't know anything about how using gospel tracts has blessed people. And maybe I mentioned this in the other comments I'm going to read, but if you're not doing anything, but you're at least using gospel tracts. Now, I do more stuff than gospel tracts, but if you're not doing gospel tracts, or if you're not doing anything else, why would you knock someone's passion? That's what I talk about discouragement. Why would you knock them down without building them up? I mean, if there's some reason you think that gospel tracts are maybe wrong to use or something like that, then you'd want to talk to the person. Obviously, the person is moving. You can't steer a parked car. Someone who's using gospel tracts, they're doing something that 98% of Christians aren't even doing at all. The last thing you should be doing is knocking them down because they're using gospel tracts. Maybe you think you have some legitimate reason. Maybe it's beyond just, people are just going to throw them away. Maybe there's some other reason. Can you at least talk to them and not discourage them, please? I mean, it would have been so much better if those two people in particular private messaged me, because they just flat out came on my Facebook post and just attacked me. This is years and years ago. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I still remember. It's still fresh in my mind. It would be so much better if it was done differently. I mean, you being the person who's criticizing should be looking at that situation and being like, oh, wow, at least they're out there passionate, doing something, they're moving. You can't steer a parked car. Let me share with them what they should be doing, not just bashing them and then running away and not talking to them ever again, because these particular people, although they haven't deleted me yet on Facebook, surprisingly, they don't talk to me in any of my posts, hardly at all. It's super, super, super rare. But anyway, I was going to say something else, but I should. So let's, I'm gonna, before I read my other comments that I posted below that post, let's go back to the Reformed Sage, that post, and I just want to read one criticism from one person. And this person says, no, I don't let them read the... Wait, it says, no, I don't... He didn't put a comment in there. So what he meant to say was, no, I don't, talking about using gospel tracts. I let them read the Bible. Many people just throw those tracts in a corner somewhere. The Word of God is what transforms lives and opens the eyes of the blind. And let's see. I'm going to read... Somebody replied to him, and let me read what this other guy says in response to him before I get to what I said. He says, when you first became a Christian, did you just read the Bible, or did you have someone witness to you? That's a very important point. How many tracts did you read before that which could have planted a seed unknown to you? Some of the greatest preachers believed in tracts. And then the person who's criticizing says, praise the Lord, when I first came to the Lord, the person the Lord used didn't give me no tracts like Jehovah's Witnesses. He made me read the Bible, the first book I ever read, outside of school, that is. He taught me from the scripture and what the Lord said. And then, let's see. Then he says, yes, once upon a time they may have been, but now they're becoming more and more ineffective at conveying the gospel. I mean, you should pause right there. It's ineffective at conveying the gospel, but at one point of time it was. So he responded to the other guy posting something about how Charles Spurgeon used gospel tracts and loved to use them and stuff. And then again, this guy says, I love sticking to the scriptures because I see that what people don't do, read their Bibles. And there's a couple more lines of dialogue. But what really bothered me was when I read that, that's ineffective today. And he makes he compares it with Jehovah's Witnesses leaving gospel or their version of gospel tracts or literature. Anyway, so I say, how does the passing of time make something ineffective? And how does comparing it to Jehovah's Witness have anything or any relevance? Don't go door to door with the gospel, and don't talk to people personally, because Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses do that. And I give the facepalm emoji. You have very little trust in the sovereignty of God if you are, and by the way, I'm probably, what's the word I'm looking for? I probably could have shown a little bit more grace in this, but I was unleashing a little bit of what I really felt here. But anyway, you have very little trust in the sovereignty of God if you are looking for something that is effective as far as tactics. The gospel is the gospel, and God can use anything. Also, preaching or talking to someone can just as much go in one ear and out the other. That's not what you judge whether or not you should preach the gospel on. You don't look at results. Pretty sure there was a lot of people who did things perfectly all throughout Scripture, including Jesus, and not every single person was saved. So there's kind of a couple of different things I could have spun off on and explained more in depth. Namely that Jesus is perfect, he's perfect in love, and yet not everyone that heard Jesus was saved. So think about that, and other characters in the Bible as well. I'm going to read what the other person responded to this person was criticizing, and I loved his comment. He said, "The issue isn't how many people came to Christ. In the issue is preaching the gospel. Christ calls to him who he will. It's our job to be faithful in sharing the gospel and leave the rest up to Christ." And there was something else that he said that was bang on the money, and it's kind of, I think I said it too somewhere else, but basically it comes down to trusting in the sovereignty of God. He is the one who saves souls. I can't find the comment right now. It's a pretty good comment, much better than I can, try to remember what it was. But so there's that. Now I'm just going to go back to my post because I added a couple more ideas that I want to share here. One person did say my personal favorites against Tracts are, and he's being sarcastic, "People don't read those. Those don't work. You need to be about relationships." And I hear that all the time. Yeah, it's in a couple other things that people wrote. So then I'm just going to read what I said, just to, again, remind myself what I had said back then, about a week ago. So I say, "There's a lot I could say, so some really quick thoughts. But I think one of the bigger things is that people lack a belief in the sovereignty of God. It also concerns me that this is big, guys, they're just not excited that the gospel is going forth." People are criticizing the going forth of the gospel. Okay, maybe you would disagree, and I say this all the time to people, maybe you disagree with preaching, open air preaching. Maybe you disagree with distributing gospel tracts. Maybe you disagree with everything besides inviting your friend to church so your pastor can preach the gospel. Can't you at least be excited that the gospel is going forth? It blows my mind that people wouldn't be excited about that. Anyway, even if they disagree with the method, they should at least be excited. I also don't think they understand what it's doing to the person who is using them. Maybe they are incredibly shy people. And I say, I'm raising my hand. Maybe for them it's very hard to talk to people, or maybe there is some reason they can't talk to people, so this is a good option for them. Instead of trying to knock them down, encourage them. I mean, that is also concerning that we're not thinking about our words, what our words are doing to people that do use them. I want to back up for a second. It's really hard to talk to people. Maybe there is some reason they can't talk to people. There's a lot of ways to use gospel tracts. I think I came up with 3 main ways. One of them, you can leave them places for people to find. Another one is to just give to people at a parade or before a Packer game or whatever. Another way is to use them as conversation starters. And a fourth way, so 4 ways, is that you can leave the person that you talk to something with, so then they can go back and read maybe something you forgot to mention. And this is kind of getting into why you should use a gospel tract. Not should, like you have to, but good reasons that you should use one if you choose to. Or just to remind them of the things that you discuss. Or maybe you forgot to mention something, so that's what the gospel tract can do, and so many other things. So just keep that in mind. I continue on. Also think about the indirect benefits. In 2013, I was handing out some tracts with my 3-year-old daughter who was with me. She wanted to start handing them out too, and 8 years later, she always wants to do it with me. I don't even have to ask. Some of my other kids have gotten involved too. Are any of the naysayers excited about that? And again, I think about those 2 women from the first church that I went to all those years ago who criticized me heavily for using gospel tracts, who, by the way, to this day, never told me what I should be doing. And as far as I know, and again, this isn't trying to be comparing or be self-righteous or arrogant, but as far as I know, they're not doing anything. but they're, not excited about the gospel going forth. Even when I post about other people, maybe they dislike me for whatever reason, because I kind of come up against some of the doctrines they teach at said church, but Pentecostalism stuff. But anyway, I share what other people are doing. It's not just my outreaches, other outreaches. Guys, can you pray for Heath and Trevor and Greg? They're out at the Appleton Bar, or they're at the Packer game preaching the gospel. Can you pray? I never see them respond to anything. There's just no excitement. And that's basically a plague that's infected the entire church at large. But I'm not going to get into that whole thing again. So I talked about that not too long ago. So tracts are not the only thing I have used, but it has been one of those humongous stepping stones to get me to do other stuff once I realized how easy it was. For the critics, I wish you would consider that, and I've talked about this before. I've been using gospel tracts since, I would say, 2005, when I first heard about Ray Comfort and his ministry. And guys, I haven't really shared my story, like full-blown, all the details, but super shy, super social anxiety, always by myself, never had anybody to take me under their wing to get the gospel out, and on and on. So for many years, I used gospel tracts. I also did a bunch of stuff online on MySpace, but not really anything in person, one-to-one. So gospel tracts really eased me into doing that, especially in 2013 when I finally met a bunch of other brothers in the Lord. I did my first parade then, and I talk about this in my main parade video, but that lit something in me that nothing else could. And that was just having that confidence, knowing how super ridiculously easy it is to get the gospel out. Now I want to do more. Now I see how easy that is. Now I can do this. Now I can do that. I can open air preach now. Not a big deal. But it started the small baby steps, giving out gospel tracts. So, continuing on, but the biggest issues I have leaving in the sovereignty of God, I don't know if I said that right. Maybe I was doing voice to text and it didn't come out right. But the biggest issues I have leaving the sovereignty of God, and also, is there any excitement that the gospel is going out? Lots more I can say, especially with individual critics, like people are just going to throw them away, etc. Now, I don't think I really addressed that in this post, but I talked about it before. People don't just throw them away. People do read them. And so what if a few people, or even 98% of the people throw them away? 2% are still reading them. Aren't you excited about that? Give out 500, 98% throw them away. It's not 98%, but just for argument's sake, that's still a number of people that are reading them. What is that, like 10 people? If it's 98% of the 500? Something like that. So, I mean, glory to God. Praise God for that. And not to mention, this is kind of getting a little bit off topic, but we tend to think that God only gets glory if someone is receiving the gospel message and they get saved, right? Or they maybe even just so far as reading the gospel message. They don't realize that God gets glory even in their judgment. So even if we preach the gospel to somebody and they don't get saved, God doesn't save them, God still gets glory from that. Seriously, people do not understand this as much as they should. I should make this its own video, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's such an important topic. There is a video I did want to make, and I wrote down a bunch of notes for it, talking about discouragement when it comes to, how many people did you save? Sometimes you get these arrogant people that will, maybe because you're doing something that they think is ineffective, like using gospel tracts. Well, how many people did you save? I saved 10 people. How many people did you save? 1? 0? None? Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't be handing out gospel tracts. You would see more people get saved. There's a lot wrong with that, and I want to address that in the future video. I already got the kind of the gist of the details worked out on that. I just have to do it one of these days. Anyway, so, and then I also make the comment, not to mention that for the person that's using the gospel tracts, there is a lot of joy to be had, and I talk about that a lot, especially like in my parade videos. There's a lot of joy to be had, guys. You're missing out. I'm serious. You're missing out. There's so much joy to be had in giving out gospel tracts at a parade or any other event. Even if you just leave gospel tracts laying around somewhere for people to pick up, there's so much joy to be had in that. It's so awesome, guys. It fires you up like nothing else. I keep telling you guys that. Please, if you haven't done anything like a parade, do it. Okay? If you don't have any gospel tracts and you can't afford 100 pack of gospel tracts, I'll order you 1 pack. If you promise me, you will use them. So if you've never used gospel tracts before, if you can't afford it, I will order you a pack. Send me your address at paradethegospel@gmail.com, and I'll send you just a pack of, I don't know, $1 Million Bill gospel tracts from Living Waters or Tract Planet. So, continuing on, I said, I shared this YouTube video, The Life of a Gospel Tract. I want to see if I can get that video and share it on my channel as well. Like, I'll talk about it for a little bit, and then I'll play the video. It's such a good video, The Life of a Gospel Tract. Look it up. Anyway, so here's a pretty cool video. I don't know if this is based on a true story and if it's an reenactment, but I've heard of crazy stories, and we all have, how a person will find a crumpled up gospel tract somewhere and God will use it. But yes, people do read them. Hand some out sometime at a garden fair or wherever and watch people read them. And that's actually kind of going back to a callback of one of the first times we did gospel tracts, which I wasn't there because I had to work that day on a Saturday. There's a garden fair going on in Washington Park in Manitowoc, and I think I talked about this in a recent video, but my pastor at that church I was going to mentions this in sermons, like, oh man, we were at the garden fair and I was there, and it was the only time he was there doing one of our events, but anyway, he's talking about people, he watched the people who were there handing the gospel tracts out, like my friend Trevor, and I think Brian was there as well, another person that we know, and he says that, like, oh yeah, I was just watching them, and yeah, they were reading them, they're walking away, they're reading the gospel tracts. It was such an awesome thing, and I hope it encouraged somebody, that he was preaching to in that sermon, or sermons, because he mentioned it a lot of times. So I hand some out sometime in the garden fair or wherever. There's lots of places you can do it. And if they don't, they don't. Not a big deal. Maybe they will later. And that's a good point too. Maybe they will read it later. Just because they don't read it right that very second doesn't mean they will not later. A lot of people don't read it right away. They'll stick it in their pocket and it's there for later. It follows them home. You can't follow them home, but the gospel tract can. Isaiah 55:11. Read that, guys. It's very good. Just because someone doesn't get saved doesn't mean God's word did not accomplish something, like in the case of someone reading the tract. That's also a really huge thing to understand. But anyway, enjoy, and I post a link to the video. And then there's another video from Wretched. It says, well, I said when I posted this video, I actually talked to the guy in this video who got saved from a gospel tract. And I mentioned how he owns a business that builds websites and such, and I was going to hire him if I ever have a Parade the Gospel website, which I don't know if I will or not, but it'd be pretty cool though. I don't know what I would put in it. And I think that's it for this post that I have here. But maybe I'll post these 2 videos down below. So, Do Gospel Tracts Save Anyone? By Wretched Radio. That's a good video. Talks about a man who was an atheist. He's coming out of a movie theater, and someone was there to hand the gospel tract to him, and he's like, well, I'm just going to throw this away when I get away from the person. But he took it home with him, read it, and the Lord saved him. So God used that person. He used that gospel tract. And we've heard of crazy stories of people getting saved, finding crumpled up gospel tracts like that video. It might be a reenactment. Maybe it's not a true story, but I'm sure it probably happened somewhere. The Life of a Gospel Tract. So I think I'll post these 2 videos down below. So I'm going to go back to the Reformed Sage post. Maybe I can find some good stuff in here to read off, but it really does come down a lot to the trusting in the sovereignty of God. And do you have the passion, or are you excited to see other people's passion? Are you excited that the gospel is even going out? Whether you disagree with gospel tracts or not, are you excited about that? And I think that will say a lot about the person, those 2 things. So, well, the person who came up against the critic said this: only a fool would limit the power of God. Think about what you just said. I didn't read that part, but think about what you just said, because you're the one saying tracts don't work, therefore limiting the power of God. My friend, anytime someone reads Scripture, they are receiving God's word. This is why you read the tracts before you hand them out to make sure they align with God's Word. Amen to that. So, again, guys, this is just a gist of my thoughts on this, a real quick run through, reading some of the stuff I have posted back then on December 18th. Oh, this is kind of cool right here. So, one person says no, he doesn't use gospel tracts because they can't relate. When I evangelize, I share personal experiences, logic, and back it up with His Word. Okay? And then somebody responded to him, "Y'all would be surprised at how many people keep those gospel tracts. I work on cars for a living, and occasionally I see one sitting in a customer's car. Never fails to put a smile on my face." And indeed, Mike, it would put a smile on my face too. Oh man, would that. Any other good ones I could read in here? But yeah, it does pain my heart to see some of the responses. And it's not just limited to this post. I've seen these responses and people's thoughts on gospel tracts before outside of this. Unfortunately, people just, again, trusting in the sovereignty of God. And how can you not get excited if the gospel is at least going out? And again, please don't discourage somebody. Maybe some of you are watching this right now and you just hate gospel tracts. Maybe you think I'm a lunatic for using them. Maybe you have something against them. I don't know. But could we at least sit down and talk about it rather than just knocking it and running? Because that's happened way too often. And it can be discouraging for some people. I mean, it is discouraging to me, but I still do it. I'm not going to stop spreading the gospel using gospel tracts or anything for that matter. I mean, some people really hate open air preaching because all they know is about what they've seen on YouTube about how not to do it, and they think, oh, it's all bad now because there's someone on YouTube who's doing it wrong. Well, there's a lot of pastors doing it wrong. Should we stop pastoring? Same logic. But anyway, what do you think, you guys? Let me know down below. I will post those videos, and I hope you are blessed by them. I really cannot wait to do that video that I mentioned about earlier about maybe like discouragement. I'm not sure what I'm going to title it yet, but how many people did you save? Obviously, God's the one that does the saving, but how many people did God use you to save? Oh, 0? Oh, well, there's a problem. No, that's not a problem at all, and I'm going to explain why. So I hope that encourages you. Not sure when I'm going to do that video. Hopefully soon, but let me know what you think about this video. So maybe if I'm encouraged by these videos that I do, I'll be more encouraged to hurry up and get the other ones out. I don't know, maybe not. So anyway, guys, God bless. I hope this blesses you. And I know I like to babble on at the end because I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to say? Because every time when I stop the video, I'm like, oh man, I should have added that. And then sometimes I'll add it down in the comment section, but nobody ever reads those. So at least, an indication of if you read the comments down below is if you give it a thumbs up. And most times people don't, so I have no idea if they are reading it or not. So I don't know. If I do think of something else, still, as always, I'll put it down below either in the info or the comments. God bless. See you later.